Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you to the 15th race of the season here for the Slipstream Racing Series Formula One Championship season finale at the Brazilian Grand Prix. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Samuel Dyer. And Sam, the championship up to this point pretty much decided, but there's still some points battles going on in the standings. And of course, there's always the chance that we could end up seeing someone break the Bronson Stafford winning streak.
Yeah, and right now, Ferrari needs to break that Bronson Stafford winning streak. He's won so far 14, trying to make it 15, a sweep of the season. That's what that AlphaTauri team is trying to do. For constructors-wise, there's a very slim possibility. Ferrari need to get a 1-2 finish with the fastest lap, and they need Bronson Stafford to finish back in 9th or 10th place. And right now, looking at the drivers right here, 9th, last place is the best that they really need to see Bronson wreck out immediately if they want even a possibility for the constructors. But drivers championship wise, Bronson has already clinched that. He clinched that about 4 weeks ago. Rest of the field, though, there's a lot of battles that we're looking at points wise. There's a battle for sixth place that really we were interested to see how it was going to unfold here, but both drivers did not show up for that. And then also looking at other battles, battle for eighth place. You've got Frozen and Nerda going up against Tanner Johnson, as both those drivers within striking distance to possibly make a move on the position points wise to finish out the season.
We're seeing here during the practice session, these drivers having to deal with rain-filled conditions, and I believe you've already been told that for qualifying and for race conditions, that they're going to be in dry conditions, so we will not have any precipitation for these drivers to have to deal with. And I'm trying to remember, I believe the other race that I filled in here was back at Singapore, and it was the same conditions here. So, I mean, is there anything that drivers are able to learn in the wet conditions here in practice that can be applied later on in the race, or is it basically two entirely different tracks?
I mean, you could really focus on where is the line, the driver's line you want to be running, as when you're in wet conditions, you can see that line really defined as that's the most driest area. As you see here, practice is over. Bronson Stafford, Matt Dyer, they really put their fastest laps during the dry conditions on the first couple of laps of practice. Then it started to wetten up. But yeah, no, it's really find that racing line. Where is the fastest parts of this track? And that's really the best thing that you can take from that practice here in the wets. Dry conditions is going to be very different for these drivers, and got to watch for during qualifying, see what what really tires these drivers are going to be using, who's going to be on the mediums, who's going to be on the softs here for qualifying.
And for the first time this season, in the season finale, we're actually going to have a Williams car out there on the track. Justin Monk's in the sixth position. How do we think he's going to do here in the season finale?
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy time to have a debut, but usually come to the end of the season, a lot of new faces start to jump up. I think Justin's really got a good shot here. We've seen Justin in other series that we broadcast on Sundays for Clutch Drop. He just won a week ago at the Roval in the Cup cars. We'll see how that can translate here to F1 2020. But Justin's going to look, we're hoping to see that he could possibly be a top five car here today. But everyone is gunning for the AlphaTauri driver of Bronson Stafford. Like we stated, he's won every single race, looking to really just cap off the season. When we talked to him about 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when he clutched the drivers' championship, his goal was just to sweep the rest of the season as drivers are out for qualifying.
They are indeed, and so we'll be waiting to see who's going to be getting the pole position for this one. I've been watching these drivers make their way around this circuit during practice, and the one thing that I'm noticing here, as opposed to some other road courses that we've been to during the course of this season, there is quite a bit of runoff for these drivers to use. But these aren't stock cars. Those rumble strips, I would think, with the low suspension would actually really dissettle these race cars. Do we see anybody using those runoff areas or no?
No, I mean, the key here for F1, for the rules, is the fact that you kind of have to stay on the racing surface. Overextensions actually can penalize you. If you overextend too many times and you utilize it too many times, you actually will be penalized in the ways of a 3-second penalty, which will be added on at the end of the race. As we're going through Sector 3 now, up front, JD top of the board, but here comes Bronson Stafford and Matt Dyer trying to get up here and pass JD of the Ferrari, but it's not looking like they're getting the speed that they want. JD's looking quick and looking like he's going to get the pole.
JD, let's see if track position is going to matter here today, as he is going to be on point. JD comes into this race third in the point standings. Looks like that's probably where he will finish out the season, as there's a gap of about 34 points between himself and his Ferrari teammate Logan Brakey. But wow, what a lap there by JD, bringing it home with a 108.007, nearly a 108 flat.
Yeah, and that is a blistering time. Usually we see drivers just barely cracking into the 108s, and we've already seen there multiple drivers cracking into the 108s. But I mean, most thing I'm surprised the fact that JD beat out Bronson Stafford, and looking at some of those drivers, 4 drivers deciding to go with the mediums at the start here, and the qualifying start, whatever tire you qualified with, if you're in the top 10, that's the tires you have to work with. So all these drivers, those are the tires you will be starting.
Yeah, kind of interesting, because you look at the Spencer Hardison machine, 108.942. I mean, that's only 9 tenths off of the lap that JD laid down, and that is with those medium tires. We're going to have to see if he can keep that speed consistently, though, as long as the run goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, Spencer Hardison, probably the best driver that has just gotten better and better each week. He's gotten himself a couple of podium finishes, and has just been one of those drivers that, if he can hit his mark, doesn't have too many mistakes. He's a top three driver, if not just a top four driver, and really helping McLaren so far. And right now, fourth in constructors, just by Spencer Hardison by himself.
We talked about coming into this race the fact that Bronson Stafford is 14 of 14. Right now, it looks like the Drivers' Championship as well as the Constructors' Championship is already wrapped up as soon as they take the green flag. It's the season finale here. Do we see drivers maybe be a little bit more outside the box in terms of their strategy to see if they can sneak out a victory here, or do they still remain as if they were, battling for points in terms of their strategy today?
I mean, it's the final race of the season. Some drivers are thinking, hey, I'm just going to full send it and just see how well I can do here, as formation lap is going to be starting. 36 laps here at the Brazilian Grand Prix. And I mean, I was talking to some of the drivers jokingly. They're just like, hey, we'll just full send it into the first corner and see who can tag Bronson Stafford. But in reality, everyone's going to be trying their different tire strategies to see how well they can do moving forward. And I'm excited to see how they can switch this thing up. But right now, JD looking great. And this is probably the best thing for Ferrari if they want a chance at this constructors, getting the pole position for JD. But now Brakey all the way back in fifth place. He's got to find himself up to second as well, hoping that Bronson wrecks out and finishes last.
Yeah, Shane Tyrion is not in the field here tonight, so only one of the AlphaTauri cars out on the track for this season finale. The gap between AlphaTauri and the Scuderia Ferraris is a total of 38 points. Yeah, it is mathematically possible that both JD and Logan Brakey could make up enough points if Bronson Stafford runs into an issue here today. How far do you think down the running order Bronson would have to finish to make sure he still locks up this championship for the constructors?
I mean, right now would have to finish outside of the top 10. Looking at it now, I believe that it is mathematically impossible. Locked up is AlphaTauri for the constructors, redoing the math. So it was a solid day. I mean, a solid season for Ferrari. They were up front, a ton of podiums, but it's hard when a driver's winning every single race. As the graphic came up, seeing there's the option of the one stopper with drivers going from soft to hard. Also, the thoughts of a two stopper is probably in most of these drivers' minds.
Drivers coming out of the final corner, heading into their respective starting stalls here for the standing start on the front straightaway. As JD on the pole position. It is his third pole of the season. He's going to be the one to get us underway. We're waiting on that flagman to wave them clear. Still waiting here. The anticipation for these drivers to take their final couple of turns around the racetrack here this season, and we're underway at Brazil.
Green flag out in the air for these drivers, 5 lights and gone. As up front it's going to be JD, and then you've also got to worry about the drivers behind him. When will Bronson start making a move? But it looks like drivers back in fourth place. A little bit of scattering going on, but really the battle between Dyer and Bronson Stafford continue to loom over one another, as Dyer right on the back bumper of that AlphaTauri for second place.
We're going to see these drivers be really aggressive, especially here in the early portions, because as we know, this is about the closest these drivers will be to each other all race long. The longer the race goes, the more stretched out the field's going to be, and the more or less likely we're going to have a lot of drivers with a blanket over.
Yeah, here at Brazil, it's all about hitting your marks and hitting the rhythm. There's so many swooping corners that if you get a little bit off track, it can affect you in the next couple of corners you attack. As right now, we're on board with Josh Ness and others. We're looking to see when will Brakey start to be making his move forward, because this Ferrari needs to get up front and start battling, but he's back in fifth place and losing time already just in the first lap, as JD going to be leading the first lap, almost over a second gap over Bronson Stafford. This is kind of a shock to see. Bronson's kind of been notoriously known to getting such a lead over the rest of the field.
You bring up Logan Brakey, and I was watching him in practice too. It kind of seems like he might be struggling here, as we've got a caution over in sector 1. That might actually be Joshness that might have been in trouble. No, actually, I think it actually might have been Johnson there.
I think it was
Johnson
both of them.
out of Haas.
Yeah, I think both of them made contact through corners 1 and 2 and launched them off courses. They're still side by side battling here for 8th place. And this is where the Ferrari team's wanting to see Bronson Stafford back here battling for ninth place and not other cars who have already have issues dropping back.
Bronson still in the second spot. Matthew Dyer was on his back bumper there at the initial start of this race, has now dropped back about a car length and a half, but going back to the Logan Brakey situation, I just didn't see the speed out of that car in practice either. Brazil and he not exactly getting along, it seems, for the moment. We'll have to see if Logan's able to translate some pit strategy to maybe gain some positions, because it just doesn't seem like that's a car that's capable right now in terms of speed and getting up there on the podium. And he's been on the podium 8 times in the 14 races so far run this season.
Yeah, both Ferraris for themselves have been on the podium 8 times this season, and they've been up there. Sometimes we've seen once or twice where both drivers have been on the podium on the same week, but it's usually been just one of the Ferraris on the podium one week, the other one comes back the next week. But they need to both finish and try to beat the record of Bronson Stafford. He's got a total of 14 wins, 14 podiums, 9 poles, and it's just not looking good for the rest of the field as we're on board here with Justin Munsell in that Williams machine in 6th place. He's trying to make a charge here in a debut race, looking pretty good for himself, running in front of the Haas driver of Frozen Inerta. And looking at the telemetry and where drivers are at, closest battle is for the lead as Bronson Stafford is starting to chip back into JD's gap that he was having, as he is right there within a half a second and continues to come closer and closer.
Now, we talked about the fact that there are some points battles coming into tonight's event between some drivers for positions in the final standings. Caleb Smith and Gilberto Javier both are tied for 6th. Neither of those drivers are in the field here tonight. As here comes Bronson Stafford. Big run there out of the final corner, and he's going to try and clear, and he will clear JD going down to the first corner.
Yeah, that was a massive play, using the ERS overtake button for Bronson Stafford to make that pass and getting the momentum to carry forward on the front stretch. But here we are, we're in lap number 4, which now means DRS is enabled for these drivers. You now have the potential to open up the wings, lose that drag, and just start taking off on the drivers in front of you. If you're the lead car, you got to make sure you have enough ERS overtake to work with, and it's a percentage build up. When you use the brake, that's when you gain that ERS back. When you use the overtake, you use it up. So it's a lot of give and take and being patient on when you want to use your ERS for these drivers. And right now, Bronson in the lead, trying to pull away, because the only time that you get that DRS is when you're within a second of the driver in front of you once you hit the DRS zone.
And he has got himself about 2 car lengths back to JD, and if you can actually see on the mini map there on the right side of the screen, the green highlighted area is those DRS zones that you were talking about. Looks like there's 4 of them in total that these drivers are able to utilize. Right here was where we saw Bronson Stafford use one when he got around JD. He used the DRS zone off the final turn.
Yeah, there's actually a total of 2 spots that you can use it. Those green circles are the zones. You have to be within a second at that green circle spot on your mini map. And once you cross that part, if you were within a second, these long range strips, that's when you're able to use the DRS.
Battle right now looks like it's going to be for the 3rd position. Matt Dyer has fallen back into the clutches of Spencer Hardison. Matt Dyer out of Renault and Hardison out of McLaren. These 2 drivers come into this race 4th and 5th in the point standings. Hardison over Dyer. 30-point separation between these 2, so right now it's just a battle on the track rather than a battle in the point standings.
Yeah, and as you can see on these drivers, Dyer's on the red. Hard softs as he goes off track there for a second. Hardison coming back up onto the course, and almost a little bit of contact there between those drivers. Hardison's on the medium tires. That's the yellow compounds as he makes the pass on the inside.
You saw right there, Matt Dyer actually took out one of the advertising signs there just on the runoff area. And so Matt Dyer right now, that car not handling to his liking, as he'll drop from the 3rd position now back to 4th. Hardison going to open up quite a bit of a gap there. And yeah, that's interesting you bring up the fact with those medium tires. We were wondering, as he had qualified in 4th with medium tires, if he was going to be able to remain consistent in terms of his speed. Looks like the answer is yes. Obviously, he's not as fast at the top 2, but he's still running pretty consistent lap times for the slower tires.
Yeah, and here's the thing, the longer this run goes on, once we get to around lap 8 and 9, those softer compounds that we see our leaders having, they're going to lose all their grip, they're going to start to slow down, and that's when Spencer Hardison's tires are going to be at its best, is around that time, and it's going to carry on that speed until around lap 14. and then we'll start to see when do we see Hardison pit, because we know the rest of the field, they're thinking around lap 9 and 10 is that window for most of these drivers on the softer compound.
Go back to the issue we saw there with Matt Dyer getting off course a little bit. Does that get contributed to the fact that he's starting to lose the grip with those softer tires, or do you think it might be attributed to something else?
Yeah, it's looking like his tires are starting to drop off just a little bit here. And you know, Dyer has been known to push his machine the maximum that it can go at times. And sometimes his tires drop off sooner than other drivers would. And right now, you're starting to see just the fact that as Dyer's pulling into the pits now, here's the thing with Dyer being the first car into the pits, the question of do you go to the harder compounds and try to run this thing to the end, or do you go to the mediums? And most likely, I'm expecting him to go to the mediums. But as I say that, yeah, I'm right. Mediums right on to the Renault team. So it's looking like a 2-tire stop for the rest of this race for Dyer. One more stop to go for the Renault.
You know, we mentioned about the fact it's the season finale, the championship's already decided, so why not go outside of your comfort zone in terms of strategy? And that might be exactly what Matt Dyer is doing right now, but Bronson Stafford has now opened up over a 2-second gap back to the second place car that we're looking at here, JD. We did have a battle that was brewing, a 3-way battle for third with Hardison, Dyer, and then we had Logan Brakey closing in. With Dyer coming to pit road, the gap is now opened up to about a second and a half between Hardison and Brakey. We'll see if Brakey is able to close in. He's got, I believe, the softer tires than Spencer Hardison, so we'll see if he's able to pick up some ground there.
Also in 7th place, we're seeing Josh Niss being just passed by everyone right now, as this is a 3-car battle. Dyer on the fresher mediums trying to get by those softs that are very worn down, and does so, passing both drivers of Frozen Inerta and Josh Niss. That was Frozen Inerta getting a little bit out of shape for that Haas driver. Off course now, giving Josh Niss that position.
Going to mention about the fact that there's another points battle coming into this race, and it's between the two Haas machines, Frozen Inertia and Tanner Johnson, who are both in the race here tonight, are separated by 4 points. We saw Tanner Johnson run into some early issues back, I think it was on lap 2 coming out of the final corner. He right now is scored back in 9th, Inertia right now in the 8th position. So it may not be over between these two teammates as to who's going to finish out the season 8th in the standings.
Yeah, and right now, looking at the drivers and where their standings is, Tanner Johnson, who's running in 9th place, needs to finish at least in 7th and have Frozen finish last if he wants a chance to pass his teammate on the board and see who was the Tier 1 driver from Haas. As these drivers continue to battle back and forth, that's really the battle of points that we can keep our eye on during this race right now. Otherwise, it's all about who can get the win done. But as you see on screen, Justin Munsell all on his own. There's really no one around him. The next car in front of him 5 seconds ahead, and then Matthew Dyer going to be about 12 and a half seconds back from the Williams machine. But you know, that just shows the difference and experience, as Justin Munsell staying just clean and consistent compared to the rest of the field that's in the back half that have been having troubles with Josh Niss, Frozen Inerta, and Tanner Johnson.
You know, we talked about Bronson Stafford that Terry's been on this season. So far has won every single race this year, but that hasn't been enough for him. He's been to the mentality. He's going to try and go out there and get every point possible. He's tried to get the pole points. He's also tried to get that point for the fastest lap. Now, on the first 2 laps, it looked like the Scuderia Ferrari of JD had the fastest lap. I've yet to see anything pop up saying that Bronson Stafford has beat his lap time. However, in classic Bronson Stafford fashion, sometimes we don't see him take that fastest lap until the closing stages of the race.
Yeah, and really, when we come to the end of this race, due to the fact we're already seeing everyone so gapped out, we could be seeing some drivers thinking with about 3 laps to go, hey, this is my time to try to put the fastest lap down if I've got enough space to come into the pits and not lose my position.
Now, we saw Matt Dyer. He's the only driver that's come to pit road so far as he came down and took those mediums on. I mean, do we see these drivers try and split this race right in half? Do we see some drivers try and stretch a little bit further past the halfway point? I mean, if you're in this race, what kind of a strategy are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, with the soft compounds, I don't expect these drivers to make it to halfway. It's just too far for the softs. They're going to be losing too much time compared to the drivers that are on the medium tires. And really looking at the drivers that are up front, they can go for about another 4 laps if they feel like comfortable-wise. But, I mean, that's up to them if they feel like they can make it that far. And it's about how much they've been wearing and tearing on their on their tires at all? Have they been using the rumble strips? They use the rumble strips that actually can hinder and hurt the tires on a longer run, or have they just been staying on track and hitting their marks and not sliding or locking up their tires?
You know, it's interesting. You bring up that fact about getting onto the rumble strip actually going to be affecting the tires. Now, we know that the rumble strips are only there to be able to kind of help cushion you from going off the course, but there is no grip there, especially when you've had the sun beating down there. Rubber gets on there very slick, but you know, I want to know, can you expand a little bit further on that, on why the rumble strips would actually wear these tires down more as opposed to, you know, maybe if you were out there in a stock car?
Yeah, I mean, even with stock cars, the rumble strips actually do hurt the tires. It's due to the fact that it's not always a flat surface for these rumble strips. They're called rumble strips because they're pretty bouncy at times. They can actually help you in some fashions, but your car actually starts bouncing. The tires get worn down more. And these drivers, they're trying their best to throw in as much speed in these corners and into these rumble strips, and it just hurts the tires at times. But like you touched on, it gets slick, it gets hot. You can really, if you really try to utilize the rumble strips too often, you can find yourself spinning out if you hit the rumble strips just wrong.
Let's talk a little bit more strategy here. Let's go back to the third place driver of Spencer Hardison. Now, you mentioned about the fact you don't think that those soft tires are going to be able to reach the halfway point. What about the mediums here for Spencer Hardison? I mean, can he maybe be able to make this just a one-stop race, go on with these mediums, and maybe take those super softs at the end?
Yeah, I mean, if he's been really saving his tires good enough here, he might be able to push it down to about halfway. But I mean, if anything, could try to push it to lap 20 to make this about a 16, 17 lap run. But that is a very risky call. I mean, with these medium compounds, might be thinking about switching to the hards here. But as we watch and see, still no one else is coming to the pits. Only Matthew Dyer has pitted so far. And you look at the gap between the Renault and the Williams. It's only gone down by about a half a second to a second and a half. And you saw there Dyer locking up the tires, and that's what he's been known for all season long, is at least locking up the tires once or twice a lap, which is being very abrasive on the tires. As we continue to watch on, closest battle is that battle for 7th place, as Joshness and Frozen Inerta still staying within striking distance of one another. That's what we've been seeing all season long. Our front five always pulling away, being so far up from one another, but it's the back half where we see the Haas drivers battling with each other or battling with the cars around them.
Yeah, right now it's about 3.5 seconds from first to second, about 6 seconds from second to third, another 3 seconds from third to fourth, another 5 seconds from fourth to fifth. You're right, this is the best battle here at the back, and Joshness and Frozen Inertia, they've not been able to get away from each other for these last 10 laps or so. The two of them really been duking it out, and that's what we saw Matthew Dyer and the fresher tires having to get through, was these two having this spirited battle. At the time it was for 6th, it's now for 7th.
Yeah, and then right when we switch over to watch them, that's when we see Joshness just hit a new gear and start pulling away from Frozen there. Frozen going off track once again. And that's what Brazil's kind of been known for. Like I said at the top of the broadcast, it's really about rhythm, how you're going to be hitting these corners. You make one mistake, you overshoot it, you undershoot. It can really hurt you, as these drivers have just hit the window of the one-stopper. If you're on the softs, to move on and try to maybe possibly turn this into a one-stopper with switching to the hards.
You know, it's kind of interesting here. You were talking about, you know, the different tricks of the trade here at this Brazilian track. And the thing that I'm looking at here, too, is if you overstep those rumble strips, a lot of the road courses we go to, if you go off into the grass, it actually kind of bogs the car down. It's like an elevation change downward. It actually looks like the grass here is a slight level up. So I'm wondering if that would cause any kind of suspension problems if a car digs into the grass, as it looks like we've got Logan Brakey bringing his machine into pit road.
Yeah, first Ferrari in, and this is kind of a sign that possibly we're going to be seeing JD come in next lap. Justin Munsell now pulling in 5th place for the Williams, and switching right to the softs is going to be that Ferrari, which is kind of a shocker to see, as now going to be switching to the harder compounds is going to be Justin Munsell pulling away.
See if indeed JD is going to come down this next lap. This is something that the Ferraris have done really all season long. One Ferrari will come down one lap, the second Ferrari comes down the next lap. Usually it ends up being Logan Brakey, the first one to come down pit road as well. So this is kind of a strategy that they've utilized the entire season. They're doing it again here in the finale.
Yeah, and that's just because just throughout the whole entire seasons that we have seen Slipstream, Logan Breakey's been notoriously known for pushing his car to the max and pushing as far as he can go. Into the pits now is going to be JD into the pits. Also, Josh Nish did come in and is now going to be heading out of the pits here as the Ferrari comes in.
Does this force the hands of Bronson Stafford perhaps to have to come into pit road this next time around? He had built up about a 3.5 second gap between himself and the pole sitter as JD down and away. See if Bronson Stafford's going to bring his AlphaTauri machine to pit road this time around. We're also waiting on Spencer Hardison, although we're expecting Hardison's going to go maybe a few laps further than these other drivers since he had those medium tires.
That battle for fourth place, Dyer is right on the gearbox of Breaky here, and right now Logan's trying to pull away the best that he can, but here comes that hard-charging Renault's team as Matthew Dyer pulls it to the inside, trying to make a pass, but Breaky switching to the softs here, looking like he's now going to be going with the medium tires to finish out this race when he has to come to the pits again.
Yeah, and we know that at least one more pit stop is in the future for Matt Dyer, as he had come down pit road, I think it was back as early as lap 6. Trying to get to the back bumper there of Logan Breaky, and he's actually not really letting him go. Logan Breaky, despite having the fresher tires right now, is only got about a car length and a half, maybe 2 car lengths back to Matt Dyer.
Yeah, and that's just because Dyer's been wearing in those medium tires. They're finally hitting their apex of when they're going to be at their best durability and the best speed. And that's why we're seeing the Renault being able to hold strong for now, but those softs are just way too strong. You're running about a second faster than what your fastest time would have been on the mediums for the first about 5 laps or so, and then it starts to dwindle away. Now, Tanner Johnson did come to the pits, now going to be back in 9th place. Josh Niss back in 8th. We're waiting to see when Frozen Inerta is going to be coming into the pits in the 7th place. And also, when is Bronson Stafford? You talk about possibly going to halfway. Bronson's trying to do the impossible and pulling away. Frozen going to be coming to the pits now for that Haas team. But I think Bronson might be thinking going as far as maybe the lap 18, then pitting for the mediums, and then you know you're for sure good to make it to the end on the mediums.
Do you think he knows the situation of Hardison behind him? It's actually Bronson's bringing it in this time. I was going to say, do you think he was trying to stretch it a little bit further, knowing that Hardison's going to be able to stretch it just a little bit further?
Yeah, I mean, right now, Bronson just proved it to us. The drivers can go about 17 laps on the softs, and he was pulling away and doing a great job. Now we wait and see. Well, when will Spencer Hardison come in? Because does he come in here around lap 19 to 20, or does he try to go out to 21 laps on these mediums? You can go pretty far on the tires here. It's such a fast course, and here at Brazil, you can finish laps so fast that you actually can go a little bit further than you would expect. As Breaky put in the fastest lap down, a 110.777, which we're expecting that to get shattered based off what those qualifying lap times are. And when will we see Bronson Stafford? Possibly has he made his final pit stop?
I think he has, because we're going to look back. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's taken on mediums. Yeah, he's taking medium tires on, so this is going to be his final stop of the day. I think since he was able to make it 17 laps on those softs, he's going to take these mediums and run it to the checkers.
And also a big surprise, we're 17 laps into this race and no one has gotten a penalty yet. That's great to see. That means everyone is staying on course. They're not overextending, and they're not cutting corners. Looking very good for this field that's been keeping it clean, as everyone is pretty spread out. I believe everyone has done their first pit stop except for the medium driver of Spencer Hardison.
I think you might be right. I'm not certain if Justin has come to pit road yet or not.
I believe he has.
All right, so yeah, you would be right then. It would be Spencer Hardison's the last driver that needs to come to pit road, and I kind of get the feeling, you can see back there just in the distance, that's Bronson Stafford. I think for Hardison right now, if he's going to have any shot of winning this race, since it's pretty obvious Bronson Stafford just made his final stop of the day, you've got to stretch as far as you possibly can and then take on those soft tires here. Try and hope that maybe you can run Bronson Stafford down here, maybe in the final 7 to 10 laps.
Yeah, I think right now Spencer Hardison might be aiming for around 22 to 23. That's going to keep you in the window where your soft tires are going to be at its primest. But we'll have to wait and see when this McLaren comes in.
One thing I found a little bit interesting there, we saw Logan Brakey break the fastest lap time, and he was out there for about 3 laps on his tires when he did so. Bronson Stafford, as well as JD, the two of them, they were out there on fresh tires. They have not been able to challenge Brakey for that fastest lap time. Almost wondering here if Bronson Stafford may not even get that point for the fastest lap, since he's out there not on the soft tires, he's out there on the medium tires. And as soon as I say that, well, I should have kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, I mean,
109.
the biggest issue right now is the fact that Brakey is going to have to switch to the mediums to finish out this race, while Bronson right now looking to see if he's on the medium. So he's just going to be getting faster and faster until the final about probably 5 to 8 laps of this race. Then he might slow down a bit. But right now, the AlphaTauri driver, Bronson Stafford, right now fastest lap in second place and looking prime to be getting the win here at Brazil, as long as no mistakes are made. And another factor we haven't brought in, that's safety cars. Virtual and safety cars still possible here if we see anyone wreck out of this race. Possibility of these drivers having that issue of dealing with a delta, also maybe getting restacked up, and a potential chance of drivers switching it up on their strategies.
That's a great point. I mean, if you're Spencer Hardison right now, do you want to see that safety car perhaps, since you're out here in the race lead, or do you want to actually...
Oh boy. Car, I believe, might have wrecked out or quit out. That's going to be Tanner Johnson, who is out of this race in sector 3. It looks like his car drifts off the course. A DNF going to be going to the Haas driver, and that takes away what was going to be a battle for 8th place in the points. We now kind of know, solidified, where points are going to be finishing out this race. Right now, we stay green. No safety car comes out as we're back to green flag racing. Spencer Hardison still is not pitted and probably aiming for another 3 more laps.
I saw there for a brief moment when we were looking at Justin in 6th position, you could see the skid marks heading off of turn 3. So it almost looks like maybe the brakes locked up or something, because it didn't look like skid marks for a spin. It looked like the car actually just never stopped and went straight.
Yeah, I mean, it's not looking good, as the Haas driver officially out of this race. And now looking at where points lie, I mean, this is looking like a great day right now for Frozen Inerta, who's going to be staying in 8th place in points. And coming into the pits, it's going to be Spencer Hardison, as Bronson was within 2 seconds when McLaren was coming into the pits. Now looking, we might be seeing Spencer Hardison drop all the way back to possibly 4th place, but he's going to be switching to the softs, trying to finish this thing out with these soft tires.
So now the question is, how far does he fall back, and how many of those spots can he retrieve in these final 15 laps or so? It looks like he's, for the moment, only going to drop back as far as 3rd. About to see, yep, that's Logan Brakey going around him for the 3rd spot now, but not going to be by much. Might be about maybe 7-8 car length separation. No, not even that. It's maybe about 2 car lengths, and Hardison on the charge for Brakey for 3rd place.
Yeah, and right now Spencer Hardison's going to be staying really close, and he's on the fresher soft, so he's got a better chance of, with more grip. Car's a lot lighter now with the fuel going away. He's got a chance to really run down the rest of the field and possibly find himself with a 2nd place finish here. It's going to take a lot, but Spencer Hardison has the car to do it.
Yeah, right now he and Logan Brakey battling for 3rd. This is going on about 30 seconds behind the 2nd place car of JD, who's currently running about 6 seconds behind Bronson Stafford, who we know for absolute certain, I'm pretty certain, is going to be on the racetrack for the remainder of this, has made his final stop onto pit road. JD, on the other hand, he's out there running on the, it looks like...
Hards.
Oh, he's on hards, you're right.
He was one of the first drivers to switch to the hards, and you know what this means is that Bronson, for the final 5 laps, his tires are going to be pretty worn and might drop off. But for JD, those final 10 laps of this race that we're coming up to, these tires are going to be at its primest and just going to get better and better until the final 2 laps of this race.
So if you're Bronson Stafford, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. Obviously, he wants to push hard, open up that gap between himself and JD for when those mediums eventually start wearing away, but at the same time, he's got about a 6-second gap. Does he try and preserve those tires here for a couple of laps? That way he has at least something in the final stages?
No, I think right now let's just push and hope for the best coming to the end of this race. Right now, this is looking like it's going to be one of the closest battles here to the end for Bronson. Is this is probably JD's best shot here. With him being on the hards, it's going to enable him to have a chance, but already with a 6-second gap, this is going to be hard enough for this machine to even have a chance to try to run down Bronson Stafford. JD's got a lot of work, and can he do it? I don't know. Bronson's just been way too consistent all season long.
This battle for third place may be ending. Spencer Hardison with the fresher tires pulling away from Logan Brakey after moving his way back up into the podium position. Brakey now back to fourth. Matt Dyer back in the fifth position, and really it looks like right now he's one of those drivers that is looking for that safety car to come out, a full course yellow, because I think he's one of the few guys in the field that we're still going to have to see back on pit road before this race is over.
Yeah, he pitted so early, he has to come in. I think he was expecting the rest of the field to kind of go for the 2-tire stop while he went for the 2-tire. Everyone else kind of aimed for a 1-tire stop. And, you know, the big advantage that Dyer is aiming for is he's going to be on the soft tires. He's going to aim for the bonus point, the fastest lap here at Brazil, and might be able to at least get back to where he is now in 5th place, because the drivers behind him really haven't been showing that speed that we've been seeing our front 5 have.
Boy, I don't know if JD just had a really good corner or if Bronson slipped up a little bit, but the gap started to close just a tiny little bit there in the second half of the course. And this might be the time here, Sam, as you alluded to, the medium tires as opposed to the hard tires. We might be starting to see that fall off.
I mean, there's a chance, but I'm really going to keep my eyes and see. I mean, at the moment, I'm looking at Spencer Hardison. He's already cut it down by a second. As I say that, he actually starts to lose a little bit of time. But this McLaren's coming with a good amount of speed, but his tires are going to just drop off here in the next about 3 to 4 laps. JD's just going to get faster, but looking at the times, they haven't really changed much between Bronson and JD in the last couple of laps. It's been a couple of tenths here or there, but I think when we're really going to be seeing that drop off is with the final 5 laps of this race. How big will that gap be once we get to lap 30? Because that's going to be a good marker to see if JD can run Bronson down or not.
Spencer Hardison, coming into this season finale, was the only driver up inside of the top 5 that didn't have 5 or more podium finishes. Only 2 podium finishes on the season. Regardless of the fact that he hasn't been up in the top 3 week after week, he's still been very consistent just outside of the podium. That's why he's subsequently 4th in the standings, but right now looking like he's en route to pick up podium finish number 3.
Yeah, and it's been a great time to see this driver making the marks. As Brakey now coming into the pits, most likely going to be switching to softs. Yeah, coming in as well as Dyer, and it's going to be interesting to see how well will Dyer try to run down the Ferrari. Not looking like the pace is really going to be there, but Dyer has been quick as he switches to the mediums to finish out this race, not to the softs. Interesting call between Dyer and the differences between the Ferrari and the Renault.
Yeah, going to be the soft tires there for Logan Brakey. As Dyer now down and away, they're gonna come out in 5th and 6th. That now moves the debuting driver of Justin Munsell up into the 4th position. Looks like he right now is on the hard tires, so I'm assuming that he made his final pit stop of the day, and he's going to be running it now to the checkers. A little squirrely there through that corner, but they don't look behind him. Here comes those fresh tires of Logan Brakey, so the battle for 4th starting to heat up.
Yeah, and really the question is, how well has Justin Munsell been able to heat up these tires? It's hard to take forever to finally get worn in the way that they feel their best, but Brakey is coming with a head of steam. It was down at about 2.5 seconds. It's less than 2 seconds. The Ferrari is coming with a head of steam. He's trying to take back 4th place. And I'm looking at the drivers up front. It's not looking like much has changed between our front 3 on their gaps. They've been staying pretty similar. It's looking like this battle for 4th place might be where all the battling is going to be finishing out during this race as we're coming to the final 10 laps to go. Frozen hit with the first penalty of the day. 3 seconds for that driver.
Tough break there for Frozen Inertia. It looks like he was going to be finishing around the 8th position anyway, which is where he's currently scored. And it's kind of interesting here, too. You were talking about that gap from first to second. Yeah, the last 7 laps, it has hovered between 6.3 to 6.6 seconds. It has not varied. It has not changed. It has remained pretty much the exact same. So Bronson Stafford out there on those mediums still being able to manage the gap between himself and those hard tires of JD, as there is the pass for 4th place. Move Logan Brakey 1 step closer to the podium.
The biggest issue for Brakey, the gap in front of him to Spencer Hardison, 20 laps, but a caution's going to happen in sector 1, and I believe that was Frozen Inerta going off track there for a second there.
Gathered it back up, continues on in that Haas machine. Bronson Stafford continues to just manage about a 6.5 second gap between himself and JD. Then you've got Spencer Hardison back there. Now the gap between Hardison and JD, it has slowly closed up. The last time we looked, it was about 9.4 seconds. It now is about roughly 8.8, 8.9 seconds. So the gap has closed down, but I'm not necessarily certain that Spencer Hardison's got enough time here with about 9.5 laps to go to be able to reel JD in for that second spot.
Yeah, the issue is the fact that Spencer's tires are just going to get worse from this point on, as we see JD's tires should be getting a little bit better comparatively. But Bronson Stafford, due to the fact that the timing that he came into the pits, those medium tires are going to be so good until, like I said, those final 5 laps. And so far, I mean, JD's at least kept it close. He's not gaining a heck of a lot, but at least close enough to make it a battle for here. But JD, I think he was expecting a little bit more from this team. I mean, had a great qualifying time, got the pole, but Bronson Stafford not giving an inch, as once he's gotten the lead, he's not looked back.
He's looking for that clean sweep, looking to go 15 for 15 here this season in starts to trips to victory lane. And you got to wonder if there was a little bit of friendly competition between the Ferraris coming into this race, because both Brakey and JD came into this one tied with 8 podiums apiece. Right now, if things stay the way they are, JT's going to take the advantage on that, having 9 podiums. Brakey right now 20 seconds away from finishing up inside the podium for a 9th time this season.
Yeah, and really the biggest thing for JD is the fact that he missed a couple of races. I think really if JD was here for every single race, Ferrari could have easily clinched or at least been extremely more ahead points-wise for constructors. But I mean, some days you got to miss, and some days you can show up. This has been a crazy 15 weeks for these drivers of, you know, a lot of ups and downs in schedules of things opening up and things not being able to stay open all the time. So I think that's the biggest issue for Ferrari. They had a chance for constructors, but it was just simple mistakes here or there, and just the attendance-wise that hurt this team and gave AlphaTauri the chance for a championship. What's crazy to look at is coming into this week, as JD's going to make that pass there on Frozen. Constructors-wise, you look at the points. Bronson himself has scored 360 points so far. Ferrari combined are only 2 points ahead of Bronson's total points just by himself. It's just wild to look at the point standings and where everyone lies so far.
And you talk about that attendance there for Ferrari. Yeah, there's no doubt if JD had been able to make every start there with Logan Brakey, that Ferrari would be taking the Constructors' Championship. Bronson Stafford has pretty much been the one carrying AlphaTauri in that Constructors' Championship. There's been a couple of times that a second AlphaTauri car has been on the racetrack. Shane Tyrion's made a couple of starts. Matthew Rodriguez has made a couple of starts, but certainly not enough to be able to help the efforts of AlphaTauri being able to win the Constructors' Championship. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. If JD had been able to make all of the races here, then we'd be talking an entirely different storyline in terms of who was going to be taking that Constructor Championship home.
All right, it's time to look and see. Lap 30. The gap between first and second has not changed at all. It's been the same. This has been crazy to see how equal these drivers have been on their different tire compounds. The fact that really JD hasn't had an advantage to gain up on the AlphaTauri just yet, and Bronson Stafford, he hasn't been able to pull away as much as I thought he might have been able to at the start of his stint with these tires. And then you look back at 3rd place, and it's looking like Spencer Hardison, he's slowly chipping away, but it's just not enough time for this driver to make any moves, and we know that the tires are going to drop off for those softs here soon.
You know, it's kind of interesting looking at the intervals right now, and it's really strange to say, but it looks like medium, soft, and hard tires are all kind of canceling each other out, running almost identical lap times, because the gap between first to second and second to third, it's not really changed much in the final 5 laps.
No, it really hasn't. I think all these drivers kind of hit their equal librium for the drivers because they haven't really changed anywhere. I think the biggest change has probably been just seeing Logan Breakey pulling away from Justin Munsell, and the fact that Matthew Dyer's slowly been gaining up on Munsell, but really hasn't. And our back half of the field, Josh Ness and Frozen Inerta, both of them have been having their woes throughout this race. And both of them very diverse on where they're standing right now between both those drivers. Kind of in no man's land for both themselves.
I've been watching the last couple of laps there, JD, and I'm surprised that the gap has actually continued to hold steady in that 6.3 to 6.6 second gap, because I've noticed him make a couple of little mistakes, especially going down through the S's of 1 and 2, where he's gotten off course just the least little bit. Now, it hasn't seemed to affect him speed-wise, but I'm almost wondering if he's trying to find some places to be able to cut a little bit of time off here, and what worries me about that is if he oversteps the edge too much, makes a mistake, and maybe falls back into the clutches of Spencer Hardison.
I think the biggest challenge for JD at this moment is the fact that he could be pushing his car too much. He has gained. He's now almost made it 6 seconds in just 2 laps, which is brilliant to see. This is what we were expecting. The final 5 laps. How well was Bronson's mediums going to be compared to the harder compounds? And we're seeing it right now. JD has already cut into this lead. Might have been a little bit of a slip up by Bronson Stafford, but those tires are starting to dwindle away. The Ferrari is coming as it is less than 6 seconds. But the question is JD going to be pushing too hard, where he could find himself with a 3-second penalty if he cuts too many corners and overextends too much?
Oh yeah, that could be definitely something that JD's got to watch out for. Right now, he has cut it down to less than the 6 seconds. It's going to be 4 to go as Bronson Stafford comes around to hit the line. So right now, in order to be on the back bumper of Bronson Stafford coming to the start-finish line, JD's going to have to cut down that gap somewhere around 1.5 seconds to maybe 1.7 seconds if he's going to have a shot at this victory.
And right now, it's not looking great as he did not gain enough on that last lap to really cut into it. He was able to beat out in the first and second sector. It's that third sector coming across the finish line when Bronson Stafford takes all that time back that JD was gaining. And this isn't looking good for the Ferrari at this moment as Bronson Stafford continues to keep the difference between 6 seconds right now.
Bronson Stafford definitely had a strategy coming in. We're used to seeing him take on the faster soft tires, try and build up as much of a gap as possible. Was really surprised that he decided to go to the mediums here on that pit stop, but the strategy looks like it's going to work out for him. I gotta wonder just what kind of handling issues he might be having right now with the fact that those tires have got to be nearly all but shredded.
And looking to see drivers that could be coming in for bonus points. Matthew Dyer just came into the pits. I think that Renault team might be thinking, go to softs, finish out this race, put the fastest lap down.
Yeah, why not? He's going to have to see if he can beat Bronson Stafford. He does take on those soft tires, so he's going to be out there, as you said, trying to get that bonus point. Matt Dyer coming into this season finale, currently in the 5th position in points. He will not be able to move any higher in the top 5 with where he's currently running, but certainly could try and finish out the season having the final fastest lap of the year.
And now he's going to have to figure out how to pass Bronson Stafford in front of him. Is Bronson just going to get out of the way, or is he going to have to make Matthew Dyer challenge to get by the leader? And as you see there, the AlphaTauri going high, letting the Renault go, deciding, hey, let's not battle this out and ruin my chance of a victory here. Just go as fast as you want. 3 laps to go, and Bronson Stafford, he lost over a second after that little transition there, giving JD some space to work with, but not enough time, it's looking like.
Saw right there, locking up the right front was Matt Dyer, and you were talking earlier about Logan Breakey trying to warm up the tires, trying to see if he could be able to lay down a fast lap. I mean, does like locking up those brakes, locking up those tires, that help warm up the tires at all if you're Matt Dyer?
No, it really doesn't. If anything, it's hurting your tires more by making them wear down more. But Matthew Dyer, he's just been known to be locking them up and causing a lot of smoke to come up for these tires throughout the whole entire season that we've been seeing him race here. And Dyer, one of those drivers that came in as he purple sector 1, came in the middle of the season and was a driver that was going to be a part-time driver, then found his work schedule switching up for him to where it allowed him to race the full-time schedule after the halfway marker. And it's been a blast to see. He's challenged Bronson Stafford at times, not for the victory, but at least for the first half of these races. And this time here at Brazil, it just has not been working out for this Renault squad, but still a great season for himself, able to be up in 5th place in points, almost was able to run down Spencer Hardison, but Spencer Hardison, like I said, the last couple of weeks has just been hitting a groove where he's not allowed anyone that has been below him in points to even have a chance to catch up to this McLaren.
Boy, Sam, you got to wonder what if we had about 5 more laps still to go, because the gap that was 6 seconds has now been cut down to less than 5 between Bronson Stafford and JD. And there you go. Matt Dyer, the strategy worked. He's laid down the fastest lap, so he takes that bonus point.
Yeah, the biggest thing is he knew he wasn't going to catch up to Justin Munsell for 5th place. He knew he had a big enough gap between himself and Josh Smith. Why not come in, get that fastest lap, get that bonus point, and at least say, hey, I was the fastest car there at Brazil, and you can see it based off the time. White flag in the air. Bronson Stafford looking fabulous right now, trying to sweep the season for himself, trying to get 15 wins in the 15 races this season.
You know, when I watched Bronson Stafford back at Singapore, the one thing that struck me is he does not put a wheel out of place. He keeps that car on the racetrack and he hits those consistent lap times. That's why he's been so good this year. That's why he's been 14 for 14 and looking for the complete sweep. We got a caution over in sector 3.
That's Frozen.
So Frozen having an issue there on the final lap. He's currently a lap down to the race leader, Bronson Stafford, but Stafford managing a 5-second gap with a few more corners to capture his 15th checkered flag of the year, as well as the championship.
Bronson Stafford, he clinched the Drivers' Championship and now gets the Constructors' Championship with his 15th win of the season here at Brazil. And this has been a fantastic season for himself here in the Slipstream F1 Championships. It's been a wild one for sure, as drivers still coming across the line. JD in 2nd place. Spencer Hardison is going to get 3rd place, his 3rd podium of the season, 9th for JD. And then you go back to Brakey, who's trying to finish out this race. It was a hard, long battle for this Ferrari.
Definitely was. Logan Brakey, that car just did not quite have the speed in practice, didn't have the speed in qualifying. He's not going to be able to get a podium, but he will bring it home 4th. And here comes Justin Munsell. Pretty good debut here for this driver. Didn't have any incidents here today. Going to get a top 5 run out of the 9 drivers that took the green flag. He's going to cross the line now with Matthew Dyer, Josh Smith, and Frozen Inertia, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Tanner Johnson, the only driver that's going to DNF from today's event.
As Frozen still trying to come around the course at the moment, and that's the last car we're waiting for to come across the line, and then the fireworks will start taking off, as we weren't officially sure who was going to win the Constructors' Championship, but we know now it's going to go to AlphaTauri here, getting the Drivers' Championship with Bronson Stafford, as well as Bronson helping AlphaTauri, carrying them to a Constructors' Championship. Congratulations to Matthew Rodriguez, who joined on board to help substitute for Shane Tarian, and also for Shane Tarian coming in and helping this team get the Constructors' Championship. As drivers coming across the line, Frozen finally does here, and officially Bronson Stafford can start the celebrations as all the drivers are done and we wait for the podium celebrations.
You know, we talk about a dominating race. This was a dominating season for Bronson Stafford, no doubt about it. Out there with 15 wins on the season and 15 starts, 9 pole positions. I mean, there's pretty much nothing else you can say to add on to that. I mean, that just basically says it all with the season that Bronson Stafford had.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like every week it's been the Bronson Stafford show. We get to talk to him during interviews, and it's just been amazing to see this AlphaTauri team and the way that they've just been able to dominate all season long. And we saw there, Spencer Hardison, driver of the day, and I think the most improved driver of the season has to go to that McLaren driver. A great run for himself. Matthew Dyer, you saw, got the fastest lap. Best lap of the day with a 119.676. That was the fastest drive here in the softs. Had to pit 3 times back there in 6th place, but Going down, Spencer Hardison goes to Logan Breaky, Justin Munsell, Matthew Dyer, Josh Niss, Frozen and Nerda, and Tanner Johnson going to be 9th place DNFing from this race. But Seth, Brazil really showed off. Strategy was the key for most of these drivers, going with a one-stop for most of them.
Yeah, and you brought it up too with the fact that, you know, as opposed to a lot of other really technical tracks we've been to, it seemed like the drivers were able to adapt really well here to Brazil. Not a whole lot of incidents. We only had the 1 3-second penalty with frozen inertia and only one driver out of the race. So, you know, very impressive there, the fact that these guys were able to, for the most part, keep their cars on the racetrack. We saw some battling here and there. While Brazil definitely played into pit strategy, it really wasn't one of those kind of survival of the fittest type of races that we've seen at certain times during the course of the season.
No, it really wasn't. It was all about just staying on course, and most of these drivers did so. Brazil, a lot of drivers enjoyed some. They feel like it's a harder course compared to others, and it was a solid race for most of these drivers. One DNF of Tanner Johnson that went out. Everyone else able to stay on course and do very well for themselves. Excited to see how this series is going to grow from here. We got to see the biggest fields of the whole entire season to 12, 13 drivers. Here we only had 9, but still a great showing by all the drivers and the way they finished out this race.
Well, let's see if we can get some post-race interviews here with our top 3 finishers. And the guy we're going to start with here is the 3rd place finisher, Spencer Hardison. Just want to point out there as well for everybody, in case you forgot, Spencer Hardison spent most of this race up inside of the podium, 3rd, 4th place. That's about where he ran most of the day. And he was the guy up there in the top 5 in qualifying that started this race on those medium tires. So very impressive that he was able to keep himself up there, maintain that track position. And we're going to talk with him right now. Hey, Spencer, it's Seth and Sam up here on the Flatout Racing Network Studios. You got us?
Yeah, man.
Well, you get driver of the race here tonight, and certainly well-deserved. We saw you kind of go outside the box in terms of starting strategy. Most of the guys around you out there on softs. You decided to be out there on mediums and then take those softs near the end. So looked like that strategy really worked out for you. Do you think that maybe, just maybe, you could have gotten up there to that 2nd position with a little bit of a varied strategy, or do you think that's the best you were able to get right there?
That was probably the best that I was able to get. I mean, I chose to go on the mediums, honestly, because I wanted to see if Bronson and them started on the softs. I wanted to see if they were going to try to one-stop it or if they were going to two-stop it like Breaky and some other guys did. So it was mainly just to let me see what I can do, and the few laps we were able to run in practice, I had pretty good pace on the hards compared to Breaky and some other people on mediums, so I felt pretty good about it. I don't know what else I could have done. I mean, obviously a two-stop wouldn't have helped, and I don't think the hards would have been able to do it either. I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm happy with it, so it's probably the best that I could hope for.
Yeah, Spencer, I mean, it was a solid season for yourself. You got driver of the race here today, but I mean, I would probably give you the most improved driver of the season. You just kept on getting better and better each week. Here today, a 3rd place for you and your 3rd podium of the season. How overall was this season for you?
I mean, it was a blast. I mean, I was just begging Breaky a while ago before we came in here to definitely do another season. I mean, like I told you guys before, I had never played an F1 game prior to the 2nd race of the season here. I had the game for about a week or 2 whenever I first joined the league. And it's just been a grind, and it's been great. I mean, I definitely didn't expect to have any podiums this year, so to come away with 3 and to have one in the last race, carry some momentum hopefully into a next season, was definitely a big plus. I honestly couldn't be happier.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of next season, we're still waiting if it's going to come up, but if it does come up, how confident are you feeling of possibly being one of the faster drivers out there?
I mean, I don't know if I'll ever catch Bronson. I mean, Bronson, like, you know, I've told you before, Sam, Bronson's just fast on iRacing. He's fast on F1. He's fast on everything. I don't know that I'll ever, especially not between now and the next season, be able to get up there with him. But I'm definitely feeling confident about competing for more podiums and being able to hopefully be able to challenge for some 2nds and 3rds. And maybe, who knows, maybe possibly catch Bronson one day with an off day or something.
A great run here tonight for you nonetheless, though. A podium finish here. Spencer, we're going to turn the microphone over to you, let you do some shout outs here after a very solid performance here today at Brazil, rather.
Honestly, shout out to Breaky for obviously putting on the league and you guys for broadcasting it all year. As I've said before, this you guys are second to none. FRN is the best that there is at this, and definitely shout out Bronson tonight because he kind of got in my ear about lap 15 or 16. Whenever I was debating whether or not I was going to two-stop it and just try to make sure I stayed ahead of Breaky, and told me to just stay out on the mediums and then run the softs all the way to the end. He's definitely helped me out with some few tips here and there, so I appreciate that. So yeah, appreciate you guys, and hopefully we'll do it again here soon.
All right, Spencer Hardison, third podium finish on the season, gets driver of the race here at Brazil, and will finish fourth in the overall standings. Congrats on a great season overall there, Spencer. And as Sam said, looking forward to, if there is another season next year, to seeing what you're able to do there.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Just wanted to say for my Freudian slip, this is not Bristol. This is Brazil. If this was Bristol, this would be kind of crazy. I don't think you can put Formula One cars at Bristol. Anyway, let's go down to our second place finisher, JD. Hey, JD, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Well, you got the pole position here tonight. We saw you up there in the second spot for most of this race. Anything you could have done to vary up your strategy, try and stop Bronson from getting that complete sweep here this season?
No, not really. I mean, two-stop would have been, is too much time knocked off by doing the two-stop here. I mean, I think you guys saw it with Logan and Spencer. I mean, Spencer didn't finish that far behind me, but 9 seconds is still significant. So two-stop wasn't the play, and I don't think there's anything different I could have done. I knew he was going for or I kind of had a hunch he was going to go soft medium. So I tried to pit a little earlier, hard, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, JD, you were slowly chipping away and gaining on Bronson there at times. Were you surprised on the fact that his mediums were able to last so much longer and your hearts just weren't able to catch up?
No, I don't know if I was surprised. I mean, he was a little more trimmed out than I was. I mean, you saw it on the overtake on lap 3. He was definitely trimmed out more, and I think that was definitely helping him. Watching my deltas coming down the front stretch and going into turn 4, he's just eating all the time that I was making up through the rest of the racetrack. So I don't know. If I wouldn't say I wasn't surprised really, but you know, we were holding station for a while. Even in the early part of that stint, we were just kind of equal. So I was relatively pleased with the pace on the hards, but yeah, it just didn't come in as quickly. And you know, I think when you're trimmed out like that, you know, it probably around here, it definitely made a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, JD, overall, a fabulous season for yourself, 9 podiums, and also 3 poles for yourself. A great overall season for Team Ferrari. But overall, from your point of view, how did you feel about the season?
Yeah, you know, I think I came out swinging tonight. You know, I think the first pole I got was kind of I actually forget when my first pole was. It might have been Australia, but you know, the first and second pole were kind of luck. I think everyone had problems in when both those poles, but for this one, I definitely just got it on raw pace. You know, I knew what I had to do. I put a little bit of time in, but you know, I can't complain. But yeah, I would have liked to have a win on my column to end the year.
Well, JD, obviously, as Sam alluded to, a great season for you overall, though. Third in the point standings, your third pole of the season, and your 9th podium finish to end the year out. Obviously, we know that if there's another season next year, that we're going to be seeing you up there battling at the front as well. Maybe you'll be able to pick up a victory there. But for now, we're going to let you do some shout-outs.
Yeah, I just want to thank the guys that have been showing up week in and week out. You know, even you guys coming through and making our little hobby a little more entertaining, and the guys that have been showing up each week to run around with us knuckleheads. You know, it's been pretty cool. So you know, I think we'll probably do some stuff in the near future, and yeah, it was cool.
All right, JD brings it home second place here tonight at Brazil to cap off the season, third in the overall standings. Once again, congratulations on a great finish here tonight, JD, and a great season overall.
Yep, thank you guys again. It's been a pleasure.
And down to victory lane we go. Bronson Stafford standing by for the 15th time this season. Hey, Bronson, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
I do.
Well, first off, congratulations on the win. Second of all, congratulations on the championship. The last time I filled in here in the booth, you went to victory lane. I think I'm going to be asking you the same identical question I asked you back at Singapore, but you know, it looked like you didn't put a tire wrong here today. We saw that you took those mediums there for the end of this race. We know that they had to have started to be wearing down there in the closing stages. So was there anywhere at this racetrack that you were struggling at any point?
When the tires got a little worn towards the end of the stint, the rear end gets a little, it wants to kick out a little bit. But besides that, really, the car was just on rails, clean air whole race, everything. The track was rubbered well, so it gripped the whole, everything, honestly. Like it was if you made a perfect plan on paper, it was followed.
Yeah, I mean, Bronson, I think the whole entire field was questioning when would we see Bronson have a slip up, and you really didn't have it all season long. Was there at any point that you were kind of like, maybe we might have a slip up here today before coming into this race?
My biggest issues have been qualifying. I think I've had 4 or 5 spins in qualifying. Didn't do today, but also didn't get pole. JD did that with a really quick lap, actually, really good lap back. JD to get pole. Most of the tracks I wasn't too worried about. Monza, I think, was probably the only one I was really worried about. Just exiting Ascari is so treacherous, and I think that was the one track that I actually tiptoed around to try and keep the winning streak going, just in case. But besides that, like the cars are pretty grippy this year, and you don't really have to worry too much.
Now, Bronson, a dominating season for yourself. You got the Drivers' Championship. That was locked in almost 4 or 5 weeks ago. And then you've got the Constructors here today. How does it feel being the champion of both of those championships?
Yeah, the only other time I've gotten Constructors was actually the other time I've gotten Drivers Championship. And that was with, or actually, I don't know. I might have another Constructors. I might have got one when Gilberto won the championship as well from Caterham. But I know I've gotten it with Christian CA Advantage on Xbox at the time. We got Constructors while I got Drivers. So definitely to do a double sweep is really great and really cool. And to do it winning every race of the season is really cool.
Well, Bronson, once again, congratulations. Win championship as a driver, championship for the Constructors, all in one fell swoop here tonight at Brazil. A dominating performance for you. I believe you led maybe every lap but one. A very solid performance for you here tonight, capping off a clean sweep here this season. We're now going to turn the microphone over. You'd like to do some shout-outs?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, you know, Sam and Anthony for most of the season, and then obviously the couple races you did, Seth. You've done a good job for fill-in for something that you're not super familiar with, and it's always fun. But just a huge shout out to Breaky for putting this on. I know he was so hesitant if we ever were going to do anything after 2012, and I'm glad we did. And we're kind of in the same boat where hesitant on if we're going to do another season. But I think right now, I think most people would like to see another season, even if it's on F1 and whatnot. I know people, Spencer example was really getting better throughout the season, and I think it'd be cool to see what he could do in a whole season at that pace. And just in general, I think it'd be really cool to come back to another one, broadcast or not, get some more people, get people in there and see what happens. So really just I hope it happens.
That's Bronson Stafford. He is your champion here for the Slipstream Formula One Championship Series. He's also your winner of the final race of the season, going a perfect 15 for 15. Once again, congratulations there, Bronson, on the championship and the victory. Go and enjoy him.
Okay, thanks, Seth.
And so, no doubt about it, I think we can clearly call this a storybook season. You don't often see a driver be that dominating to win every single race. Not only that, but with 2 championships, constructor and drivers, those going to Bronson as well as the entire AlphaTauri team. Definitely a dominating performance here for Bronson Stafford. and there's the rumors about it coming back for another season. Obviously, he's going to be public enemy number one if that new season goes green.
Yeah, I mean, seeing who's going to show up for this upcoming season, if it happens, are they going to find faster drivers? Also, is the middle of the field going to get a lot more competitive with more drivers coming into this series? It's going to be exciting to see how this league explodes from here for the Slipstream F1 Championships. It's always exciting to see. I've been watching this Slipstream, guys, since they started back in the 360 days to really to now. It's crazy to see how we've evolved for this league and to have it broadcast all season long. It's been so much fun just to watch these guys up in the booth, and I can't wait to see where it grows from here.
It's interesting. You can weigh in on this as well, Sam. A lot of these drivers that really did well in the point standings, they didn't really have a full-time teammate for the entire season. Bronson Stafford, as we mentioned, he had Matthew Rodriguez and Shane Tyrion filling in here and there in the second AlphaTauri team. Spencer Hardison was the only McLaren out there week after week. Matt Dyer, he was really the only Renault car out there. You did have Gilberto Javier out there. I think it was for 5 or 6 races, but he didn't make all of them. If some of these guys that we know are more than likely, if a new season takes place, if they're going to be running full time, be kind of cool to see all of them actually be on teams together and see that Constructors Championship maybe be an even closer points battle next year.
Yeah, that's when off season gets really interesting. Who's going to team up with who? I'm expecting to see Breaky and JD staying as a team. They did so well. Like we said, if they just were there and the attendance was there for both drivers, there was a chance for them to beat out AlphaTauri for the Constructors Championship. And honestly, Bronson, even with all of his wins, all the bonus points he got, there was still a chance that Ferrari could have beat that team for Constructors. That was just how consistent they were as a team.
Well, that's going to do it for our coverage, not only for tonight's race, but for the season here for the Slipstream Formula One Championship Series. Bronson Stafford, your winner here tonight, your champion as well in both driver and constructors championships. Again, a very dominating performance for the driver out of AlphaTauri. Bronson hit it right on the head. I'm not very familiar with this type of racing, this type of cars, but Sam, I appreciate letting me join you in the booth for this one.
Oh, it's always a blast having you up in the booth, Seth, and getting to watch some F1 racing. You did a great job like you did last time. And, like we said, Anthony usually up in the booth with me. He was not able to show up, but it's been a blast to commentate with Anthony. This is our first time working together with myself and Anthony, being able to watch F1 together. And it's been a blast all season long, seeing the evolution of all the drivers and how they've gotten better every single race. And again, thank you, Seth, for being up in the booth here today with me. It's always a pleasure to work with you.
Hey, not a problem. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed checking it out at Singapore as well. Definitely, these drivers very brave when getting those race cars because they take those corners at rates of speed that makes my heart jump. But thanks to everybody that tuned in here tonight. We hope you enjoyed Flatout Racing Network's coverage here for the Slipstream Formula One Championship Series. Tomorrow night, Sam and I are going to be back at it. We're going to be covering the G-Force Grand National Series as they're going to be at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway for the Belly Up Sports 100. That should be a good one, 100 laps at that 1.5 mile racetrack. So be sure to tune into that tomorrow night. But for Samuel Dyer, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Monday evening as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.